Hi, I am Michelle Perry, and I am the owner and founder of Successful Diligence, and I am so excited to be a guest on the Inspiring Show podcast. Really looking forward to it.
Welcome to the Inspiring Show with Paul and Jennifer Henczel, featuring inspiring interviews with thought leaders, storytellers, entrepreneurs, influencers, and legacy builders just like you. Learn from experts about finding your voice, mastering your mindset, and creating movements with your message. Tap into timeless wisdom and today's top strategies for transcending to new levels of success, happiness, and joy.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Henczel from The Inspiring Show. Thanks for tuning in. And today's guest is Michelle Perry from Successful Diligence. Michelle Perry established herself as a subject matter expert over the course of a 20-year career as a clinical social worker. She then transitioned into the corporate business world where her leadership and coaching skills were refined, producing results in everyone she worked with. After almost failing high school, Michelle earned a master's degree from Columbia University. Her former education, victory over trauma and loss, and a complete mindset transformation has equipped Michelle as a life empowerment coach, where she uses a skill-based cognitive behavioral empowerment approach. So I hope you enjoy today's episode with Michelle Perry. It's a pleasure to have you as a guest on our podcast.
It is such an honor to be here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity and to share.
Cool. Now, when I was reading your bio, there was one phrase that jumped out at me that I can personally relate to, and that was victory over trauma and loss.
Yes.
So could you share with us, what you want about that?
Well, my entire life has been threaded with loss, starting with my father, who left my life when I was 3 and has not returned since, and he's now passed on. And I've also had trauma throughout every season of life, from toddlerhood to elementary school, high school, college, and even as an adult. So there's been different kinds of trauma, more emotional and mental, that I've had to overcome. I've also experienced rape and mental abuse, emotional abuse. So having victory over that has been the most empowering journey of my life.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you had to go through that, but, it's also very empowering and inspiring to hear people who come out on the other side of that as well. And
I actually embrace it, and I'm grateful for every experience that I've gone through because it's made me who I am, and I really am grateful for who I am today. And without those experiences, I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I did, and I wouldn't have the empowerment that I have. So I'm actually grateful for every experience.
Awesome. I like that. Is there anything more specific that you feel comfortable in sharing?
In terms of loss and trauma, I think the biggest loss mentally and emotionally was my father. So I'm a biracial individual, and I grew up in the late 70s, early 80s, before being multi-ethnic and biracial was sort of normal. There were no hair problems, no one really understood. And so I was the only brown skinned person growing up until about high school, junior high school.
Wow.
And so dealing with, kids can be mean and they don't understand, and name calling, but also that yearning for a father who wasn't there. And my mother didn't talk about him very much, so I didn't have a lot of information either. So that gap was very, very strong for me. And as a little girl, you want your dad, you want to look up to him. It sort of started a path of inappropriate viewpoint of men, which led to some of the trauma in adulthood. That loss of that sort of that idea of that perfect father that you want has been a thread throughout life as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. Now, you talk about how attention can save a life. So
Yes.
can you share with our listeners about that?
Yes, attention is one of the most powerful things in life. And I think even, going back to my childhood, I grew up sort of like a foster child in my aunt's house while my mother was a single mom and had to work. And I wasn't paying attention to a lot. And so, there's that image of a wilting flower that I think of, and attention is the water that is needed for the flower to bloom. The concept of attention and being so powerful that it can change a life really happened when I was in high school, January 2nd of 1992. And the reason I know that date, it's seared in my mind, because that was the day that I met death. And what I mean by that is that there was a boy who I had gone through high school with, and I knew his name. I didn't really know him very well, didn't really talk to him. He was that weird kid that, no one really paid attention to. And January 2nd was the day we all got back after winter break. And we were all high school seniors talking, chatting, what have you. And all of a sudden there was a noise from the corner. And I looked in the corner, and there was this boy, and he was stirring a styrofoam cup, and he had a little smile on his face. And I remember thinking, that's so weird. I've never seen him smile before. And just went back to talking, what have you. And what ended up happening is that he had cyanide in that cup, and he drank it, and he began to convulse, and he died in front of us in that classroom on January 2nd of 1992. And that was the day that really changed my life. It put me on a path towards my career, and it made me understand that if anyone had really paid attention to him, he might not have taken that drastic action that day. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That is quite the story.
Yeah, and I remember they named the gym after him, and they planted a tree in his honor.
Yeah.
And I remember being so angry, not at him, but at us, the people left behind, because it just magnified that we're giving this attention, we're giving all of these, these emotions and these actions after he's gone, when he needed it when he was here. And if we had that attention, given him sort of, those smiles or a conversation, he might still be here today. You never know.
Wow. I can only imagine what that was like for everyone in that classroom to witness that.
Life-changing, I'll tell you that. And it put me on the path towards, I was a clinical social worker for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I worked in the child welfare system, and recognizing those children who were neglected or abused, and when they got the attention of their social worker or another child, or a positive experience by a teacher, they would light up and be infused with resilience and positivity just from a moment of attention. Really drove home the point that attention really can save and change a life. Like it's drastic and it's dramatic, but it's very, very true.
Wow. Yeah, really good lesson. But what hits me with that is, here you went through something traumatic, and that changed you enough to want to, help other people.
Yeah. And I was so angry when we planted that tree and I didn't understand where that anger was coming from. But it took me years. I mean, it took me through almost the end of college to process that and really understand, where is that anger coming from? And the root of that anger for me was, we didn't do enough for him. And so I made it my mission to impact every single person that I meet, whether it's a stranger on the street with a smile, or someone that I know. Everyone that I meet has to be impacted with positive attention from me. And that was my way of honoring him.
Wow. But you took that negative and really, you really had that fuel you to try to create something positive after that. And it just kind of shows how trauma and loss can, kind of affect you and manifest itself in different feelings.
Absolutely. And I think it took me a long time to also understand the power of choice in that. We all have experiences. We all have situations and circumstances that hit us differently.
Yep.
But how we choose to respond either gives it the power of good or the power to take us down. And we can choose the outcome of that. That was the other lesson that I learned from that.
Yeah, that's really good. Reminds me of a quote. You can decide how to react to things. You can't, right? You can't choose what all the events that happen to you, but you do have a choice after that.
Absolutely. We always have a choice, even if the only choice is how to respond.
Yeah. Yeah, really good. So now what has helped you master your mind?
That it's not just one thing, because you think about your mindset and there's different
Right.
mindsets you have and viewpoints and how you filter information. And so, mastering and conquering the mind began with a decision to tell the truth. I used to be very self-deceptive and, things are fine. This and that, tell myself stories when that wasn't actually factual or the truth. And when I began to tell the truth and really honor the integrity of my process, I was able to reframe and be able to change my perspective on the situations and circumstances that I was living through. And so step by step is how I changed my mindset. And there's different tools and strategies to do that. And I talk about that in my online course, but one of them was being truthful and honest. Yep. And journaling to find out what I'm thinking.
Interesting. Are there any other, kind of tools or strategies that kind of helped you along the way and to master your mind? Anything that you practiced?
I practice journaling. That's really important. I also am very intentional about seeking out knowledge and wisdom from other people to learn what lessons they've gone through and that they can share with me. And I've also realized that gratitude has been the biggest mindset changer of anything else. And choosing gratitude, even when I don't feel it, but making a choice to be grateful and finding something, even if the only thing I'm grateful for is being on this side of the dirt for today or waking up. If that's the only thing that I can find grateful, that's a start.
That is true. That's really good. It is finding something to be grateful for, even when in, certain moments it may not feel like there is anything, because there is always that other side.
I agree.
And it does shift your mind. So
it's been scientifically proven that gratefulness can rewire your brain, and you can actually strengthen those neural pathways that serve you and are for good. And the less you pay attention to those negative thoughts and those negative viewpoints and perspectives, the less you practice those neurotransmitters and those neural pathways actually weaken. And the ones that you pay attention to and that you pour into become stronger and stronger. And that is really where the mindset shift happens.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really, really allowing yourself to focus on the opportunities that are present by being grateful as opposed to the obstacles.
And being intentional about it. It's a choice. Yeah. Sometimes you have to not feel it, but choose it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's really good. Now, if you could talk with anyone dead or alive, who would that be and why?
So I love this question because it was the first question that my husband asked me when we met. And my answer today is the same. It's my father, because I don't remember him. And I would love to know what kind of person he is. And it's interesting. I found out when I was 32 years old that I have a brother, same father, different mothers. And we never really developed a relationship. So I don't know if he's like my father or we met once, but I really would love to understand why my father chose to never contact me or want to get to know me, to understand what he went through, what his family was like, just to really pick his brain, because I've heard stories about him that are really interesting. He sounds like a really fun guy, but I'll never have the chance to know him now.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing about that. Now, you talked about being a clinical social worker for 20 years. Now, talk to us about what led you from doing that to doing what you do now.
Well, it's interesting. So for 20 years, I was a clinical social worker, and I've worked in schools, community centers. I've worked for 3 different states across the country in long-term foster care, child welfare, adoption. And then I became a national consultant twice, once for an evidence-based model of foster care, and then also for abuse prevention. And so I kind of reached the pinnacle of what I wanted to do in all my goals. And when we moved to Texas, where we live now, my husband recognized that I wasn't the same person that I was before, and I had to actually pay attention to myself and pay attention to my mind, my emotions, my physical health, which was deteriorating. And I had to implement self-care in the form of recognizing that I had reached every goal that I wanted to in social work, and it was time to try a new challenge, even though I was after 30, I was about 39 years old when I switched careers. So I went into corporate America. And when I was in corporate America, I realized and recognized that people were seeking me out for coaching and mentoring. And so I formalized that and put it under the umbrella of my business, Successful Diligence. And it's grown per request of my clients into a podcast, online courses, but it really was paying attention to myself and giving myself that overall self-care of recognizing when I needed mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical care and implementing that for myself.
So as a social worker and, everything you went through before that, what led you to do that, were you kind of taking on too much maybe at times of what?
Absolutely. Social workers oftentimes are underpaid, overworked. Our caseload is tremendous. There's such a need. There's so many kids and families who need a positive influence in their life, and they don't always have that. And so when you are a giver, you want to give, and sometimes forget about yourself. And I always say, if you let your cup run empty, you have nothing to give out. You have nothing to pour out. And so your cup filled so that you have something to give out to others. And you can't deplete yourself so much that you have nothing else to give. And so I had recognized that I was depleting myself. But as a social worker, I gave 150%. I'm so grateful for the kids and the families that I met who allowed me the gift of being able to, pour into their life and share the journey with them. And it was a gift of an experience, but it definitely took its toll mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, I can really only imagine what that was like, but good for you for, kind of understanding that now you needed to pay more attention to yourself.
And also different way. We all have gifts that sometimes we don't recognize. I didn't know coaching was a gift. I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't know some of those other untapped gifts that once I began to take care of myself sort of surfaced.
Yeah. It's interesting how life kind of presents itself, or it throws certain lessons your way to prepare you for something else.
I love that. Throws things at you to prepare you for the next, because really, I believe everybody has something to offer this world, and we all have a gift to deposit into someone. And we don't always realize it or recognize it or honor it. But if we look back and we really think about our experiences, we can see what those seeds that happened that made us who we are, that then use that gift that we can offer people.
Yeah, I kind of see how it seemed like, obviously, from what you went through, you know, at an early age, what you witnessed, that gave you a passion, right, to help people. But really, your purpose wasn't really defined until, you know, then, okay, I recognize the gift of coaching, right? And that you can help people in a different way, but kind of, you know, look at yourself first, how you can master your mind, and then how you can help others do the same thing, right?
Exactly, because I wouldn't be able to give at the depth that I can now if I didn't those experiences, if I didn't conquer my own mindset, if I didn't master self-care, if I didn't learn those lessons deeply, that because I've traveled that road, I can now, you know, bring someone else on that same journey for them and give them tools and strategies and a viewpoint that they may not have thought of, only because they lived it. So we have to become the person that we need to be to get to the destination that we were created for.
Yeah, really good. Now I want to ask, kind of going back a little bit, when you talked about being a social worker and then your transition after that, you mentioned your husband.
Yes.
So did he kind of play a role? Did he recognize something and kind of like help you kind of see differently, or that you were getting burned out? Was that the case?
Pivotal. I credit him for being able to get out or transition, not get out. He actually, so I was working for the state when this happened, and I had a caseload that was overwhelming. And at the time I was serving kids and families who only dealt with sexual abuse, child death, and serious severe abuse. And so the cases that I saw were heartbreaking, and the level of emotionality really takes its toll. Plus, you got the paperwork and all of that. And one night I was with my laptop, and we're supposed to be spending time together, you know, my husband and I, and he looked at me and he said, "Babe, you got to really take a look at things and figure out if you've done everything that you want to do in social work, or you've got to make some changes because you're not the same person that I married." And that conversation really struck a chord, and I had to do some deep reflection and really take a look at my overall self and my mind and where I was physically, emotionally. And I was stressed. I was very unhealthy. And so I had to make changes. And so that was really the spark. He was the spark that really got me to that transition. Awesome.
I really like hearing that. I know kind of with me, my wife would kind of be the same support, or, you know, that level that I needed. Your husband was that for you when you needed it most. So thank goodness for support.
Yes. Now, I mean, it's hard to see when you're in it and someone from the outside, that lens.
Definitely. I know, you know, looking at something from the outside is always easier than when you're stuck in the middle of it. So there's that different perspective. Well, what would you like, what could you say or offer to other people that are possibly going through that maybe someone who doesn't have support, or, you know, something that maybe could help them recognize, you know, something like that maybe, you know, they're going through something in that moment that maybe they can't see?
Well, I remember when I was in the depths of despair and all of that kind of dark place, it feels very lonely, and you can sort of make up a story that you're the only one going through this and that your pain is like no other. And it is like no other because we're all individuals.
Right.
However, you're not alone is what I would tell that person. It may feel like it, but there's people out there that will support you, even if it's a stranger that, the internet gets a bad rap, and Facebook and social media and all that, but there are some really wonderful people that can be supportive and can walk through the journey. And there's a purpose in it. I think that knowing that there's a purpose and an end to it, it's not forever. It came to pass. It will pass.
Yeah.
That helps sort of, my key phrase that I always say is keep walking. Because I always say if I can keep walking one foot in front of the other, eventually I'll walk out of it and into something new.
Awesome. I really like that. But that is really true. And I'm glad you brought that up, is there you may not see it in that moment, but it is there.
Yeah.
Like keep looking. I mean, giving up, you don't have that option anymore if you make that choice, but choosing, to go forward or trust that there are other people who will understand.
And sometimes there have been experiences that I've gone through where I didn't understand it at the time, but looking back, 2020 they say is the vision, but looking back, I can see where that experience helped produce empathy that I can offer to someone else. So that purpose sometimes, helps me in current and future, when I'm going through something hard that doesn't make sense at all. If I keep walking, maybe someone else can benefit from what I've gone through.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
Because storytelling, it builds that connection, but then it also kind of creates and, helps you build relationships after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The human race is one big community, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yes. Excellent. I think I read where you mentioned collaboration and community in your mission or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, one of my core values in my business is collaboration, because, when I'm working with someone, whether it's coaching, mentoring, sharing the journey, whatever it is, it's never me doing the work, and it's never them doing the work by themselves. It's a walking together, sharing the journey. It's a collaboration. Their wisdom and knowledge of their experience, my wisdom and knowledge of what I've been through and learned and can offer, come together to produce that productive outcome for them.
Yeah, excellent. I always love it when I see other people using, words like that in their as values and in their mission statement aligns with us, because we are stronger together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, if I trip, someone can help me not fall.
Yeah.
And if, is heading towards a cliff, I can pull their arm back and say, hey, come this way.
Yeah, for sure. Now, something else I want to ask you that maybe you could share from experience is, I know there are people who, they're going through something, and, you said it earlier about thinking that you're alone, but anything you could offer around, like, because there are times that we can't do it alone, that we need to reach out or be brave enough to ask for help.
I love that you use the word brave, because it takes tremendous courage to ask for help, or to even recognize that you need help. That in and of itself is an act of courage, to even admit I need help. I can't do it by myself. That is a courageous act right there. And knowing that when you do reach out, there will be someone there to respond to, I think can help get over that initial nervousness or hesitation. And then when you take that step, it's not as scary as you thought it would be. And that gives you the confidence to take another step of courage, another step of courage. And that only helps empower you on your journey.
Yes. Excellent. Awesome. I love that. Because it's true that one step can build momentum into something greater. And how would we know what lies on the other side if we don't take that initial step, or just get past that initial fear of, maybe in that moment possibly being vulnerable?
And you never know what's inside of you either. I had no idea that I was as strong as I am. I used to feel very weak, especially going through the trauma and the situations.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how strong I really was. Just the courage to keep walking, just the courage to keep living. There's such a strength in that. And then to be able to celebrate that, recognize it and celebrate that also is courage, because oftentimes we don't like to celebrate our wins. You feel like, oh, I'm going to be humble. But
yes.
You celebrate yourself. You need to give yourself the credit and to honor the integrity of your journey, to give yourself that celebration because you did it.
Exactly. Well, I really like that. And I know I want to say, just by hearing what you've shared today, there is a pattern of you always taking that step forward. And even earlier you mentioned how, you take every experience that happened to you, good or bad, and use that, for something better or something to learn from.
Yeah, and that's intentional. I make an intentional choice to do that. And I look for the richness of life, and I look for the opportunity to use every experience to benefit someone else. That's really my life goal. But it's an intentional choice.
Awesome. That's great. So now we're going to go into our speed round. Okay. So I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions, and you just give me the first answer that comes to your head.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question is, what do you do for fun?
I love to read. I'm sort of a nerd, but I love learning. Cool. The more I learn, the more I know what I don't know. Yeah. And I also love chess.
Sorry, I missed that last part.
I love to play chess.
Oh, play chess.
Yeah.
Oh, are you good? Are you a chess master?
Not a master, but I did beat my once.
Cool. That's good. There's certain games I like too. Next question. What's your favorite quote?
My favorite, can I do two? So the first one I mentioned, which was keep walking. But the other quote is, the life that you live is the lesson that you teach.
The life that you live is the lesson you teach. Awesome. Who has inspired you the most?
I thought about this, and it's going to be a little weird, but the prior version of myself inspires me the most. So I look back to who I was, and I get so motivated and inspired to keep going.
Oh, nice. I like that. That's original, but really good.
And it took courage to say it because it didn't feel humble.
Wow. Yeah, no kidding. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, I'll be honest with you, it's my journals. When I read my journals, it unfolds the story of me to myself, and it reveals more about me to me. And so I love reading my old journals. That's the greatest book.
Well, now I'm adding another question into here. Have you written a book, or are you thinking of doing so?
Well, you've keyed into my future there. I actually have, I've got a children's book that I have written. My husband is a designer and a graphic designer, so he's illustrating. Okay. And I do have a book inside of me, as well as 2 ebooks that are in process.
Oh, nice. Great to hear that. Okay. We'll look forward to that when they come out. And what is a really good tool or resource that you could recommend?
I think resources, there's so many, but I think the journaling is really the greatest tool that I can recommend, well as continuing to seek out knowledge and wisdom from people who you admire or look up to.
Awesome. Really good. Now that leads into how can our listeners connect with you further?
The best place to find me is successfuldiligence.com, because it has links to the podcast, the school, all of the different ways you can even email me. So successfuldiligence.com. And I wanted to also, I did a special gift for your listeners. I have online courses. Right now, the one, it's called the Butterfly Transformation, and it sort of deals with what we've been talking about mindset change, vision, mission. And it's in launch mode right now, but I'm offering your listeners 50% off of the launch price with the code INSPIRING.
Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. We'll put that link in the show notes. So thank you very much for that. Well, Michelle, it was an absolute pleasure having you as a guest. Thank you for sharing your stories, sharing really, again, how you kind of mastered your mind and, to help others. So
it has been such an honor. I'm so grateful. I think of providential connections, and I think that this was one of them. And I'm so honored to have been able to be here and share and also learn from you all. You guys have been through an amazing, I'm going to call it an adventure. So it's just an honor to be connected.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you very much. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. And I hope you enjoyed that episode today with Michelle Perry. I loved her stories, how she allows herself to be vulnerable, and then the tips that she gave, how attention can save a life, and the choices that we make to be grateful can really help us, and really understanding that mastering your mind is really the first step in creating a life that you want to live, and so you can help others. So, great interview. And until next time, remember, you have a story and your story matters. Thanks, everyone.